Aloha, welcome to the Live Ukulele podcast. My name is Brad Bordessa. Thank you for tuning in today. My guest is Keola Donaghy, who is the director of the Institute of Hawaiian Music at University of Hawaii, Maui College. I was a student at the Institute of Hawaiian Music for about a year before Keola came on board as our new director. So I got to study under Uncle George Kahumoku, who started the program, and then also work with Keola as Keola brought a little bit more academic structure to the Institute. So we'll talk about that. He is a well-known haku mele, a Hawaiian language composer. Has written a bunch of songs. He works with Kenneth Makuakane a lot, and you'll hear him talk about some of his projects that he's been recently working on, and he'll share a bit about his approach to composing and translating and making sure that you get all of the proper protocols and respect where it is due as far as, you know, dealing with artistic and musical endeavors and respecting the original artists and things like that. Had a really nice time talking story with Keola. I think you guys are going to enjoy what he has to share. Want to remind you folks that liveukulele.com and the Live Ukulele podcast are listener supported. So if you like what you hear, please subscribe, leave a review about the podcast. Please go to liveukulele.com and sign up for my newsletter. It's a really great way for us to stay in touch, for me to get you updates on what is new, what I'm working on, and let you know when I have new lessons available. And finally, if you go to liveukulele.com/store, you can browse my selection of video lessons and ebooks, and any purchases that you make there will directly benefit the time that I put into this podcast and all of the other free content that I provide on liveukulele.com. Thank you so much for your support and consideration. I'm getting close, kind of, to the end of my next set of lessons. It's called Hawaiian Songs for Ukulele. It's basically what you'd expect. It's a 5-song repertoire, and I walk you through basically 4 different styles of playing the song, or 3 main styles with one kind of more advanced breakdown. And that is, you learn to play the picking melody of the vocal part, right? These are just classic public domain songs that I know and love and think are great basic Hawaiian repertoire for anybody who wants to learn to play Hawaiian music. So you learn to play the melody, you learn to play the chords, and also how to pronounce the Hawaiian words. I think that it's very important that folks who are new to Hawaiian music or have been playing Hawaiian music for a while but have never really looked at the language have a little bit of insight. And not that I am a super expert on the Hawaiian language, but I know enough to make sure that I'm pronouncing things correctly, and I'm happy to share that as part of the lessons. So there will be that component for the people who like to strum and sing. And then for more advanced players, intermediate, advanced, there is a basic solo arrangement and an advanced solo arrangement. So 3 main ways to interact with the song, to learn the song. And if you work through all 3 of them, as I encourage people to do, you're going to have a really good understanding of the music. And the whole idea of these lessons is to bring Hawaiian music and Hawaiian style learning to a broader audience. And so I don't really get too obsessed or nerdy with proper transcriptions or scores or anything like that. I think that it's really important to learn Hawaiian music kind of a Hawaiian way, and that is watch, listen, and learn that way. And don't ask so many questions, and don't expect like that handout for a note by note transcription for every single thing. That said, there is going to be a transcription for every song. There will be backing tracks for every song, playthroughs. I'll record myself playing it off the cuff and naturally. And it should just be a great package for folks who want to dive in, learn some beautiful songs, and expand their depth into a new genre, or expand your understanding of the Hawaiian music genre. So that should be coming out in a few months. in a few months. I have a few more videos to go, and then I got to put everything together, get my launch all prepped and everything like that. And then we'll be ready to rock and roll. And I'm really looking forward to it. This is the most excited I've been about a course in pretty much ever. I just think that the content speaks for itself, and it's going to be super fun and super useful for folks. So keep an eye out for that. Like I said, please subscribe to my newsletter. That will be the first place you hear about the launch. Without further ado, here is the interview I did with Keola Donaghy. Cool. Well, thanks so much for joining me, Keola. We spent a lot of time together in the Institute of Hawaiian Music, but I don't think any of us really got a super great idea of your background and how you came to be the director of IHM. Could you give us like a quick version of, your growing up through however you got to IHM?
Well, started here, as a 30-year-old freshman at Maui College, ended up going to Hilo. My goal was, actually to become a Hawaiian immersion teacher. So I did the 2 years, which is all you could do on Maui, and then moved to Hilo. Spent 18 years there and went through, the Bachelor's of Hawaiian Studies and then the Master's in Hawaiian Language and Literature program. And it was during my MA that I started to regain my earlier interest in the musical side of things. I played music here on Maui for several years and kind of diverted into the language for a long time. But yeah, for my master's, I decided to do a kind of a linguistic analysis of Johnny Almeida's vocal performances and kind of looking at how Hawaiian language is sung a little differently than it's spoken. In very subtle but noticeable ways if your ears are attuned to that. And then decided to go the ethnomusicology route, so went to University of Otago, did my PhD work there on haku Mele, Hawaiian language composition. And I had just gotten my PhD and was returning to teaching full-time at UH Hilo when, I got a call that there was a, job opening on Maui, Hawaiian music specialized. In working, with the Institute of Hawaiian Music. And, during the interview was like, the program was put together very quickly, with Uncle George Kahumoku. And it really needed somebody that had the university background of how to, develop curriculum. And, the program was offering a certificate, but really hadn't, gone through the process of getting that approved. So there was a lot of administrative work, and, the first year was a lot of, working with Uncle George and Kili'itao'a, who were already working the program, and trying to map things out, figure out what the program was advertised as doing and, kind of aligning that with the realities of, what you need to accomplish, if you're pursuing a degree or a certificate at the university, and kind of bridging that gap. So, it was I think it was about 8 months of working with Uncle George, and, he was informed, well, you're eligible for retirement from state work. And he's like, okay, I'll do that. So, basically, left to handle IHM alone. About the same time, the lead faculty member, the only other faculty member in music, Dr. Bob Wehrman, got very sick. So I had to take on music studies as well. And, to date, the campus still has not hired a second music faculty. So I'm still kind of juggling both jobs of, trying to keep IHM going in spite of the hit we took during the pandemic, and also, trying to build music studies up again, because it's so hard to teach music online, particularly when you're dealing with ensemble. One-on-one, you can get away with it. But when you're trying to teach, musicians how to play together, how to rehearse, get ready for the studio, you really got to be face to face with them. And we're finally at the point now where, the circumstances are such that it's feasible for us to do it again.
And so, is there an upcoming cohort going to be put together?
We're working on it. I really want us to gear up and hit the road running again in the fall semester. Because of the pandemic, we never got to officially celebrate IHM's 10th anniversary, which would have been last year. You folks started 10 years ago. So we're planning to do something here in the spring, either a concert or an event that brings together, concert and maybe some workshops on campus, try to get people back here. Just had a meeting about that yesterday. And then we're working on a special project for the fall that hopefully, they're the legal people are dotting I's and crossing T's of doing an accelerated IHM in the fall focused on West Maui. So I'm not sure if you have seen, there have been a couple CDs with a strong West Maui focus come out in the past couple years. One was called Leina Honua Pi'ilani. I think Zach Lum and Lance Collins, an attorney here, were the producers of that. While one of the organizations that funded that wants to do another project. And I agreed to take it on only if, it wasn't just producing a CD, but there was an educational component. So we would take people out to the areas they wanted us to, compose and record songs for, learn about the places, bring in some, experienced hakumele and musicians to help work with them to develop the songs. So that's going to be like a 6 month, not even a 6 month, it'll start in August and run through December maybe.
Wow. And so will you do that with a full set of students or?
Yeah, we're looking to recruit about 15 people and probably more experienced students, I would say, after your group and then Lehuanani's group, which had some pretty, talented musicians in it. The ability of our students has been going down to where we're, having people come in that, are challenged to play 3 chords and hold a melody with their voice. So, we've worked with what, the students we have, but I think for this kind of project, we really need to find folks that already have a degree of ability, but are looking to, sharpen their skills in the area of, composing, in vocal performance in the language and getting a deeper understanding of the process of creating a mele and, why you write a mele, particularly those that are place-based, having to do some research about it, specific, area names and streams and winds and all that, a lot of folks composing today don't go to that level of digging into an area.
So I know that when I was in IHM and our cohort got started, we started with Uncle George, and it was a little scattered, though we had the amazing opportunity to really work closely with him and the way that he presented the program. And then when you came in, it changed and got a little bit more, academically structured. So I kind of feel like we got, aside from being the guinea pigs, we got the best of both worlds, kind of.
Yeah.
But what did you come in with and feel like should really be the focus of somebody who wanted to come in and improve at Hawaiian music and become more competent in the industry? What did you feel like was the most important thing to share with folks and make sure to continue teaching them through the program?
Well, it's really difficult to cover everything in 2 years. And, particularly with students who are just starting out, in terms of, the repertoire, getting a deep understanding of the depth of Hawaiian compositions, of understanding performance practice, that, there is leeway, given to people. A lot of folks think, well, if Gabby recorded this song, I need to, perform it exactly like Gabby did, which is not true, and same thing with John Almeida. There's there's limits to how much you can personalize and innovate before you kind of take things too far. And then there's also, there's certain people whose compositions you don't want to mess with. They're almost, I hate to use the word classical, but, they have a reverence of that level. People like Lena Machado, Helen Deshay Beamer. I mean, those are the kind of musics that they were so. I mean, and these are very musically literate people, that knew exactly what they were doing. So, you don't take Helen Deshay Beamer's song and reharmonize it and change those beautiful chords that she did. If you want to do that, go write your own song. But then when it comes to the older songs that were, written in the 1800s that were basically, 1/5, even like Ki'ilave, it's changed. It's the way Brother Is and Gabby did it was not the same as the way it was done previously. So those kind of songs, you have a little bit more leeway to play with. The Queen's stuff is obviously stuff you don't want to mess with either, or any of Nalani Eha, her three siblings. You try to, honor what we call, composer intent in those kind of compositions. I think one of the bigger challenges, and we didn't get into it with your group as deeply as I would have liked to, is the business side of things. Understanding copyright law to protect your rights as a composer and performer, recording artist, respecting those of others. I don't know if you saw, I had a little group project I put out where we did a Hawaiian language version of Tennessee whiskey.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I'll share it with you. But a lot of people are doing this without permission, and you can't. It's illegal. It's called a derivative work, and you need to get, even though we could have recorded Tennessee whiskey and just gotten what's called a compulsory license and paid our 91 cents or whatever it is now to the composers. When you translate, you have to get explicit permission. So, I reached out to the composer's name's Dean Dillon, and he was tickled that I wanted to do a translation. Sure. I'm like, well, do you want to listen? He says, no, just send me a copy when you're done.
Cool.
So, subtleties like that, and the way the industry is now, generating multiple streams of income, knowing how to get your music into streaming services and into people's, high volume playlists and things like that, being versatile, if you've got to pay a manager and a booking agent and, all these other things, that takes away from what you can make. So the more things you can do, if you can get a decent computer and interface and, a mic and a preamp, you can do some pretty decent recordings at home. But, you have to put in the time to learn the technology too. You're only as good as, or your recording will only be as good as your skill. I know guys that could take an iPad with a cheap interface and do a better job recording than I can in our, $750,000 studio next door. So, it takes that commitment, the willingness to take that on until you get to the point where, hey, okay, having to do all this business stuff is taking away from my creative time. I really need to hire somebody now. The first pro you should hire to me is a tax person.
Amen.
You don't want to mess that up. But once you get to the point of booking and agents and, all that kind of stuff, you got to get to a certain point where it, makes sense. You can start making more money if you hire somebody to do that rather than just, okay, I've been practicing for 6 months. I need to go find an agent and get a label. And, those kind of dreams rarely work out.
Right.
But, Uncle George is a great example of, and, I'm sure you guys were heavily exposed to it even before I got there, of, with his Napili Kai shows, they did a business plan. I think Wayne Wong had helped them with that. And, they put all the numbers together and like, yeah, this can be successful. And they did it. They just didn't go out on a wing. Okay, we're going to we're going to invest $100,000 for this show, run it for 2 months, and see what happens. No, that's not how you do it.
Right.
But the other thing I think which we never got a whole lot of time to do with you folks is your versatility as a musician. I think I mentioned to you guys once. If you can play ukulele, here's your market. If you can play ukulele and sing, okay, here. If you can play bass, you've got your own sound system. Oh my God, you got your own recording studio. The more versatile you are, the more opportunities there are for you to make a living in the industry.
Absolutely.
And you had a couple just ukulele players in your bunch too.
Yep. Yeah, I think that was before I was really playing anything else, and we stuck to it. There'd sometimes be 4 ukuleles in the band, and
exactly.
Boy, how that would not fly with me now.
Everybody doing the same chord and doing the same strum and singing the same part. Yeah, I've seen a lot of those kind of bands,
If you struggle with knowing how to get to your next note on the ukulele, how to move fluidly across the fretboard, Left Hand Technique for Ukulele is a video guide to becoming more comfortable with the ukulele. Whether you're a beginner or an advanced player, you'll learn through these 9 hours of HD video lessons how to move across the fretboard, how to play up and down a single string with efficient shifts, how to play from string to string without needing to know theory or interval distances, how to express yourself best using articulations and different ways of dressing up the notes so that they present in a more evocative kind of way. Left Hand Technique is all those things and much more. To learn more, visit liveukulele.com/store. You mentioned translating Tennessee whiskey. How does that differ from the songs that you write directly into Hawaiian? What is the process like for that? I haven't really been able to talk to anybody who's done much translating of a song.
Well, how do I describe it? I don't like doing that kind of thing, specifically with a target. Okay, I'm gonna record this, or somebody else is gonna record this. I do a lot of that kind of thing just for the practice of being able to take a song. I'll give you an example. U2's I Still Haven't Found What I'm Looking For. I've had that for years, and every once in a while I go back and I do a little tweak here and there. But I do it just to explore the ideas in it. I think, the ideas of this constant search resonated with me. I remember one of the Hawaiian studies scholars I studied with, always used the term ka'imiloa, the great search, and he takes it back to, the original Polynesian navigators that populated the Pacific, ka'imiloa, they're always searching for something, and in terms of knowledge, the same thing. So, I kind of start with that idea. Is there something in this song that can be expressed in a way that would make sense to somebody that speaks Hawaiian, and not just be a literal word for word translation of it? So, like that song, I can't even remember the English first line anymore because I've been hearing the Hawaiian for so long. I used to waste my time in a bottle or something like that. So how do you say something like that? And if you can't literally express it, how can you express it metaphorically? In this case, the literal translation kind of worked. But honestly, it's fairly rare that I come up with something that I think, hey, this is good enough to give to somebody to record. There was one other song like that on this release I did that we call the group Aeae. It's a translation of Gaylord Holomalia's Lover of Mine. Is recorded it, and Kalapana recorded it. And I've had that for years too. And, with little tweaks here and just the way that he, his expression just seemed natural to, in Hawaiian, Mele about, being separated from the one you love, are there are plenty of them. So the use of the sea, metaphorically, literally, really, really worked well. I remember somebody asked me, "Can you translate the green, green grass of home?" I'm like, no. Though now I would think back and go, I just kind of laugh because of the first line. Kamau o ma'o kahale. No, I don't think so. But, I should really go in and look at the whole song because, that idea of home, of connectedness to place is something that, to me resonates from a, Hawaiian cultural standpoint and something that might lend itself to be expressed that way. Somebody, I want to mention her name, wanted me to translate creep. And, I looked at it real hard and I was like, I would have to change its, in such a way that it really wouldn't be recognizable as creep. And I would, I'd have doubts whether the artist would actually, even respond to a request for a translation. A lot of people do that anyway. They don't care. It's like, well, I'm not going to make much money if they sue me over it. That's, whatever. But I just don't feel right about it. I think, asking permission is a big thing, in those kind of cases. I know how I would feel if somebody took one of my Hawaiian compositions and just translated it into English without asking me. I would be quite upset about it.
Well, you talk about like the Hawaiian metaphors and the Hawaiian way of thinking and understanding. Something that I've heard a lot in recent years, especially teaching at Uncle George's workshop, is people want to be able to sound Hawaiian, right? Western folks come from the mainland. They come to a Hawaiian music workshop. They play their ukulele. They play the Hawaiian songs, but somehow it just doesn't sound Hawaiian. So how can I sound Hawaiian? Do you have any thoughts about what it is that makes Hawaiian music sound Hawaiian from your perspective?
Well, number one, and we could go down a rabbit hole with this. The rhythms of Hawaiian music to me come from the language. A lot of people will say, well, it comes from hula. Well, the hula comes from the language. So, in the older hula forms, the only instrumentation was, percussion instrument, the pahu and ipu, and they were there to support the vocal performance. So when people write original, ukulele songs or even slack key songs, what makes it or breaks it for me is, do those melodies fit the kind of phrasing you would hear in a vocal line? Even if you listen to Uamo Keo Ka'ainai Kapono, you can kind of hear the rhythm of the language there. Uamo Keo Ka'ainai Kapono. It's linguists call it prosody, but you could call it the flow or the rhythm of the language. And when you have melodies that don't, if I hear a melody and I go, I can't imagine a Hawaiian sentence being sung to that melody. There's elements within that I've been trying to, working on figuring out for a couple decades now. But, that basic rhythm is really derived from the language. And then if you go to the hula, the next step is that, the swing feel of hula performances, hula music performances is kind of unique. I mean, there's many different degrees and styles of swing that you can do. So I think that is one element of it. If you grow up in a classical or jazz or Western pop environment, the rhythm's not quite the same. When it comes to, the language delivery, that's another aspect. And it's not just, people from the mainland or, that are going to these camps. It's a matter of, number one is, first is the pronunciation and the sounds of vowels, and knowing that, Hawaiian really doesn't have diphthongs. You pronounce every vowel, even if they've kind of flowed together. Nay, it's one syllable, but you can still hear both vowels. Not changing a vowel sound, like you'll see, okapo, po, and then it'll slowly turn to o, they'll add another sound at the end of it, or the e, there's times when you do things like that, but there's these really subtle little things that differentiate, even, within, folks in the industry today. You can pretty much tell the folks who understand what they're singing about and those that just memorized words. So I think, if you get to the point where your pronunciation is really good, that's the first step. But how do you go beyond that? And you internalize the mana'o of the song and be able to express that in your vocal delivery. To me, that's the ultimate. If you can really convince me as I'm watching your performance, you understand what you're singing. You're kind of embodying what you're singing. I can see you as a vehicle for. One of the best interviews I ever had when I was working on my doctorate was with Dennis Kamakahi, and he was talking about the song Kamanu. And he was giving the backstory of the song as he had learned it from Auntie Alice Namakelua. Now, Auntie Alice didn't write it, but she had learned it from, I forget if it was an uncle or an older brother, an older male in her family. And as he's talking and telling the story, it was almost like he transformed into the protagonist of the story. And I was just watching him and I listened back to that. I wrote a paper on this and just going, wow. I mean, he was transported back into the 1800s, like he was describing, he was seeing what he was talking to me about. So people who can do that while they're singing, to me, are the best at it. Example would be Keola Rachel, for all of his, talents. Most of the music he sings is from his own experience. It's, songs that he's written for his partner or his grandmother, whoever. He's lived the words that he's singing to you.
Hmm.
It's harder to do when it's somebody else's song, but,
Totally.
Doesn't mean you shouldn't try.
Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that maybe being the reason that he connects with so many people is because it's so authentic, because it is his experiences.
Exactly. And Kay will tell you, he's not the greatest singer, the most technically proficient singer. He's, not the greatest guitar player on the planet. What he does incredibly well. But there's, he's got that it factor,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, he got an overload of it. Plus his depth of knowledge as a kumuhula, as a hula practitioner, as a composer. I mean, and that speaks again to the depth and the versatility. If you just focus on, copying Peter Moon or Jake Shimabukuro licks all day, that's one thing. But, he has his own voice. Dennis Kamakahi had his own voice. Uncle George has his own voice. So, how do you get beyond just a repetition of what's already been done? Find your voice, but do it in a way that is, respectful of the tradition.
It's important stuff.
Well, it's the kind of, I was, when I was teaching my Molokai cohort, it's like, I was always talking about things that keep me up at night. And some of those are some of those things.
Well, you're also heavily involved in kind of techie stuff, and the techie side of bringing ʻōlelo Hawaiʻi to different digital platforms. My mom reminded me the other day that you were involved with getting Hawaiian Wordle up and running. Is that so?
Yeah, it's called Hulihua. I haven't been doing much tech I mean, since I came to Maui, just a couple things. That was my job at Hilo, from 94 to 2012, so I found the Ulukau website, vehevehe.org. Those all started off on a spare computer sitting under my desk at Hilo, the New Pepa site. We actually had a Hawaiian language bulletin board system back in 1984. When people were just discovering the internet, we had a system that was completely in Hawaiian, plus you could type, send emails and files on each other and totally interact with your computer in Hawaiian. Stuff like getting the keyboard into Mac OS and Windows and all that. So, but since I got here, yeah, Hulihua has been one of the few techie things that I get into, and it was basically a friend from Honolulu who works in Canada now. I had never, I had heard of Wordle, but never tried it, and I had actually found one for Maori language. I started learning Te Reo Maori a few years ago, and enjoyed that, and I'm like. Anyway, she pointed me to a repository of a fellow in Canada that had taken an open source version of Wordle and modified it to make it easier for other languages to utilize. So I downloaded it, contacted the creator of this, what they call a fork in this open source code. And it took a couple days to get it working, and then, maybe a week of testing it with some friends, and, I just turned it loose on the internet, and, it's been running happily ever since.
Awesome.
Yeah. And honestly, I haven't played it in a while. I'm just too busy with other projects right now.
Do you have a repository of words coded into it, or is it somehow...
Yeah, I still have a lot of things from my Hilo days, so I've got, word lists up the kazoo, and it was fairly easy for me to pare it down to, all words with 5 letters. And there's the occasional glitch of a word that, came out of a text that nobody knows what it means. I'm like, oops, okay, I'll take that one out. But yeah, it's been a little over a year now since, not quite a year since it's been running, and I think I only had about a year's worth of words, so the choice is going to be now either to just start over or maybe create a six letter version of the game, and because I think there was about as many 5-letter words as there were 6-letter words. So yeah, I'm going to have to consult with my hardcore users and see what direction they want to go with it.
Cool. Well, what is next for the Institute of Hawaiian Music?
Well, again, this semester we want to do some kind of celebration of IHM, where it's still very much in the planning stage. If we have need for you, I may be giving you a call to see if you could make it over for the celebration. The IHM, this special cohort that I talked about in fall. Depending on how many people are interested in that, we may or may not start a regular cohort again. I may just totally put my focus into that. I'm going to be chairing humanities in the fall, which, is going to take some effort, and I'm not sure how much I'll be able to deal with. And then hopefully I'm going to be in New Zealand next spring. Put in an application for what's called a Fulbright scholarship, and if it gets approved, I won't, I leave in January, won't be back until June. So, getting back into IHM trying to reestablish it to its former glory might have to wait until, the following fall.
And if folks are interested in finding out more about the program, where should they go?
They can email me. It's my last name, Donaghy, Donaghy at Hawaii.edu. Or they can call my office, 808-984-3570. Be happy to talk to anybody that's interested.
Cool. Yeah, well, it was a wonderful opportunity for all of us, and I certainly grew a whole lot, and I credit a lot of where I'm at to the program and appreciate the opportunity.
Well, I credit where you got to your being dedicated to your craft and your art, and, being able to focus on that. I'm glad that, our program could contribute to it, but, give yourself a pat on the back too, because, I would say you were one of the more dedicated, students that we had in the entire time of IHM. So glad you hung in there, glad you stuck it out to the finish, and it's been fun watching you get to where you are now.
Well, thank you. Hopefully there's some more music to be produced in the future. That's the part I'm lacking.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, baby steps. All right, thank you so much, Keola.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to get to talk story with you again after so long.
Once again, would like to mahalo Keola for taking the time to talk story with me. It's been a long time since we've had a chance to properly kind of catch up and talk story about some of the details and intricacies of Hawaiian music. Always good to see a friendly face. And if you are interested in finding out more about IHM beyond contacting Keola directly, you can go to maui.hawaii.edu/IHM and check out the IHM homepage. There's actually an old picture of our first cohort all the way at the bottom. See if you can spot me. The Live Ukulele podcast is published on the first and third Saturdays of every month. Please subscribe. Please leave a review if you like what you hear here. And go check out liveukulele.com/store to have a look at some of the lessons that I offer. That is the best way to directly support my time here at the podcast. And keep an eye out for Hawaiian songs for ukulele. It's going to be great. I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Ahui ho, malama pono, aloha.